What's up everyone, 3Gun Kenzie here, back for a new video. Now I've got my competition rifles and carbines set up here because I've got 1,000 DMs, comments, and messages from all of you guys actually on my Instagram reels, on the channel that, on YouTube, on Classic Firearms, a couple different channels about why am I running 2 dots? Why am I running an offset and a primary? Why am I doing 1X and a 1X, right? And so I'm here to explain the whys and the competition aspect to all of these. So I have 3 rifles in front of me. I have my 3-gun competition rifle. So I have the 1-to-8 Trijicon scope. That's what I run. It's got a mil reticle. It is amazing. And in 3-gun, I shoot out to 600 yards on the clock. So you really need something for distance, right? And then I have an offset red dot, the hollow sun optic here on here for basically close-up paper, close range targets, which I'll get into the nitty gritty, but that's what's on my 3-gun rifle. Now, in the world of USPSA or IDPA, I'm sure some other competitions I'm not even thinking of right now, I've got 2 optics set up on my PCC, pistol caliber carbine. So I have a hollow sun. It's a giant window. It's the 510C. I love the optic, big old reticle, right? And so that is on top. And then on the side, I've got the Aimpoint Acro on an offset here. So that's the PCC setup. Now, I just actually shot this recently, the AK here, my IWI Galil, in an AK match at Kalash Bash in Texas. It was awesome. And same thing. So I have the Hollow Sun 510C on here, and then my offset is the 407 from Hollow Sun as well. There's turkeys out here. Anyways, so basically 1X and 1X, right? I'm not using a magnifier. I'm not changing and doing like a 3X or 6X. I've seen those. But that's what the setup looks like across the board. Kenzie, why? Why are we running this? Well, let me tell you. Like I said, for 3-gun, you're gonna be having to basically stretch out on the clock. And what that means is maybe I'm prone with the bipod, or I'm just shooting longer range. And then I might have to take off into the woods. And that means I've got paper. Typically when you're shooting long range, I run at about a 6 magnification level. I don't bottom it out at the 8, I do 6. And instead of taking the time when you're moving to throw the magnification all the way down and use that, I'll leave it on 6. Shoot my long range, and then I'll switch over. Okay, so I've got the offset basically for close range paper. I just see a single red dot on there, and it's really fast to get your target acquisition and make your shots. The scope magnification ring can be a little bit difficult to maneuver. Some scopes are just a lot heavier. When I'm talking about heavy, meaning difficult to turn that left and right. There are some companies, very rare, but some companies that you can actually ask them to lighten that magnification throw, so it's a little bit easier. The other thing too is this is an illuminated reticle. So what that means is when you turn on, you've got a green option and a red option, and that will actually illuminate in the reticle. Here's the thing, if I'm shooting 600-yard target, say, I don't know what it is, but say I have a 4mm hold. That illumination is actually distracting for me because that's in the crosshairs and I'm trying to hold for elevation. In 3-gun, we don't really dial our scopes, we hold. So I don't want it illuminated. But when I switch over the dot, that's easy because it's easy to pick up and nice and bright. So that's the 3-gun setup and the why behind that rifle. I got a ton of comments on the reel that Hollow Sun and I did about this AK, so I'm gonna dive into it. All right, and let me preface this before I go into this. Run what you want to run. Don't crap on me and what I want to run. Run what you want to run, okay? So I'll preface this by saying I saw people at that match shooting an LPVO and an offset dot. I actually saw some people, very few, but run an optic and a magnifier. And then I saw some people just with a red dot and no offset. Okay, so for me, looks a little bit different. I use the 510C as my primary optic. So if I've got farther shots, steel targets, anything like that that I'm doing on the clock, then I use the primary. Or, you know, if they're close range paper, that's very easy to pick up. And that is zeroed at 50 yards. So 50 yard zero, and in 8K matches, we might shoot out to about 50 to 200 yards. I would say that's pretty much the most common that I've seen. And so for the offset dot is a different zero. So this one's zeroed at 7 yards. Now, I got a lot of flack for this, and the internet is just so lovely. But there was an array of targets where there was 7 stacks of paper targets with no shoots over it. So the only thing that you saw was the head box and then the shoulders. And then you had to actually lean over barrels from left side and the right side. Then you had open paper, and then the final box, same thing. You had to lean out for 3 targets, lean out for 4, and they had the no shoots on every single one. So a couple things. Number one, that offset dot, if you have a barrel or maybe a wall or something obstructing your vision to reach the target, say you're leaning out, it is really hard to lean and keep the rifle straight, right? So for me, if I cant the rifle sideways, I can actually lean out and still see a dot and have a lot easier time shooting that target than trying to keep the rifle straight. Now, if you've ever pegged a no shoot, okay, all of us have, then you know how much fun that is. And at Clash Bash, those penalties were 5 seconds. It was a lot of time. So this optic is really nice for the offset because at 7 yard 0 with really close paper, I do not have to think about height over bore. Kenzie, what is height over bore? All right, if you're shooting close range paper, the bullet's coming out of the muzzle here, but your optic's up here, these are not gonna meet, right? So you're actually having to hold higher to make sure that where you're aiming and hitting on close range paper is not shooting lower than you want it to be. When you're competing and you're shooting a stage in 20 seconds, you do not have time to think about 2 inches over height over bore, 2 inches over height over bore. And leaning on top of that, it's too much. And so for the internet warlords that likes to comment, you go shoot a match, tell me how it goes. So what we do, at least in the professional competitive world, is we use our offset for close paper that has no shoots, so we don't have to hold higher. We've got our primary for longer range shots. So that's the reasoning behind this rifle, behind the optic setup, and why I really like it. And so, like I said, run what you want to run, but let me run what I want to run. All right, final gun here. And I have a funny story about this. So pistol caliber carbine, I love my Da Vinci here. I want to say 2019 maybe. I'll have to find the year, but 2019, I was shooting 2-gun nationals and I borrowed a rifle that only had one optic, and it flew off in the middle of the stage. Flew off the gun. There's video. When that happened, there was no offset. There was no backup iron sights. You were just sort of like, cool. So when that flew off, I was just point aiming. Did I hit no shoots? Absolutely. So long story short, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. If you're a knife person, you know this. So same thing with this rifle, but a little bit different from the AK is my primary 510C is zeroed for further distance. And in USPSA and IDPA, we really don't shoot past, I would say like 25 yards, 30 yards. There are some longer 40-yard shots sometimes, but this is zeroed at 25. Okay, so 25-yard range is really easy for basically aiming in the right zone that you want to be on. It's definitely easy for open paper and what have you. But the offset red dot, same as AK, is zeroed at 7 yards. So again, you're going to see hard cover, you're going to see no shoots, you're going to see hard leans, especially in the USPSA world. So in the shooting sports such as USPSA and IDPA, you only have one long gun division, which is your PCC division. And you're actually competing against all of the pistol divisions, right? And so with the offset, especially in the hard leans, I've had it time and time again. Match directors don't really love PCC shooters. Some of them do, some of them don't. But where I'm getting at is if you're moving with a pistol and you're having to lean out over a wall, it's really easy with a handgun. I've seen people actually offhand those shots, you know, basically lean out and have a lot easier time. Now, when you're talking about a full-length rifle, guys, it's the same concept with an AR or AK. How do you lean out over a wall and keep that primary optic and keep yourself balanced? Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But that offset is really convenient for those harder leans. You don't have to reach out as much. You just turn it over and the shot's there. So yeah, maneuverability when you're playing a pistol shooting sport with a PCC is a little bit different. So that offset helps with the hard leans. Again, with the different zeros, you're really at an advantage here. So that's why I run that on the PCC. And honestly, most competitors now are running the offset dot as a backup, as 2 different zeros, as those hard leans. But one thing I want to talk about is what sort of mount you need to do these things. And I have the most game changer mount in the world, I promise you, because it's amazing. So Viridian Weapons made this pinch mount is what it's called. The pinch mount is still set for Picatinny, so you loosen these screws, set it on there. What's really neat though is you can buy different optic plates for whatever optic you're running. So, you know, Holosun runs the Trijicon footprint, you got the aim point, they have the Doctor one, so I've got the Doctor here as well. And here's what's super cool. I'm gonna show you close up, but from far away, you can actually slide this optic plate here, slide it closer. What that means on your rifle is you can actually move the optic further away from your primary optic or your LPVO. and push it out. And why that's important is if you have a mount that doesn't do that, you could actually be looking through your offset and looking at your turret on the side of your scope, and that doesn't do anyone good, right? The other thing I'll mention too, and this is a personal preference, is I know some shooters run their primary or their offset dot further back behind their primary, or they can run it further forward. The biggest thing and the biggest lesson I learned is to not mount any optics on the handguard. The handguard can move, it can wobble, it can get loose. You know, you want it on the upper receiver specifically. So that means from back here to the end of the upper. That's not a lot of space. So you might only be able to put the offset dot further back versus up front. So same thing with the PCC, you'll see that I have the handguard here goes out and I've got my primary, but I actually have the offset further forward. So it's completely different than my AR-15 rifle here. But the pinch mount is awesome. So it really is set up to you. You can do 35 degree, 45 degree, and shift that over. And then, like I said, make sure you get the right plate for whatever footprint that you use. This is incredible. I have actually sheared off different mounts before. And then when you get mounts that are just Picatinny, on top of that, you've got to get the Picatinny mount for the optic, and so now you're with 3 different devices. Versus this, the plate, the optic, you're done. So I hope that answers some of your questions about why running 2 1X dots, why run an offset, yada yada. Yes, division matters too. In open, you can have the offset dot. If you're shooting like TAC ops for 3-gun or a different division where that's not allowed, you can't have it. So thank you for watching. Be sure to comment, maybe give me some more, hard times for what I do with my guns. Like, subscribe, and all of that. Stay tuned for a new video coming soon.